I'm feeling what Allison feels every Sunday morning. The love. All right. My name is Rachel Johnson, which is pretty insignificant compared to the storytellers that we have this afternoon. Oh, we are in for a treat. We're so glad that you made time for us. I know there's like 42 things that you could be doing today, but just in case, I see some new faces, and if you haven't been in the building, there are 2 restrooms downstairs. You go through that door, down the steps, and right to the left is one. And if that one's busy, you go through Zeller Hall, which that's what we call our fellowship hall, towards the kitchen. I think you can see that, and it's the door on the left. So today we have 5 storytellers who are sharing 5 stories with us. Oh, they could probably share 100 and some, but we're not going to stay. So without further ado, let me proudly introduce our first storyteller, who is no stranger to our church, to Brattleboro, to Vermont, to the north. Well, you get it. Mr. Peter Amadon. Yes. And he is usually singing or playing or composing or, well, any number of other things. So today, his story is, and you may have read it in the paper, and you probably looked it up already. Sir Gawain and Lady Ragno, an Arthurian legend. And you won't believe this, but I really practiced this. Hunters hunting a hart, a risky riddle, a loathly lady, a noble knight, and a magical marriage. Give a rounding applause to Peter.
I want to thank Rachel for bringing attention to storytelling, because it's a survival skill for me, which first started in 1980 when I was an elementary school music teacher, the first time I became a full-time elementary school music teacher, and I had a 4th grade in Newfane that I did not know what to do with. I could not handle them. I just did not know what to do. And there were a couple other music teachers, Becky Graber was one of them at the time, who told stories as part of their music teaching, and I had never done that. But I liked reading stories, so I took out my Grimms and I learned one. I knew you weren't supposed to read it, so I sort of memorized it. And I told these 4th graders, I said, gather around, I'm going to tell you a story. And they gathered around, and I started telling a story, and they were very strangely quiet. So quiet, it made me nervous. I thought maybe they just thought I was just doing a terrible job. I didn't know why they were so quiet. And then when I finished, and I didn't tell the story well, it was the first time I'd ever done this before, but it was one of these Grimm's Tales, and I got through it, and half of them said, tell it again. And the other half said, tell us another one. So that's how it became a survival technique for me in my music teaching. It was just... King Arthur lived, King Arthur with all of his lords and ladies. They were in the Castle Camelot. But every midwinter, when the days were short and the nights were long, they go to the Castle Carlisle. And they do the same things we do on our vacations in midwinter. They'd eat and drink and sing and dance and talk with each other. But King Arthur's favorite thing to do was he loved to go hunting for hart, which is a word for male deer. Hunting, he loved to go hunting for hart with his huntsmen, and first thing in the morning they go off with their bows and arrows. His huntsmen and his knights, they'd be on their horses and their bows and arrows, and they'd go riding into the forest. And one morning they took off into the forest, and right away he saw something he had not seen since he was a little boy. It was a white hart, an albino deer, a white hart. And Arthur said, we're going to catch that hart. Don't harm a hair on his back. We're going to catch him. We'll make him the palace pet. And they rode off as fast as they could ride. And Arthur was riding as fast as he could go on his horse. And I know that you know that Arthur was the fastest of all of them. So it wasn't long before he was way, way ahead of all the other huntsmen, even out of sight of them. And the hart kept running up onto the top of a hill. He could just barely see, and he'd go for that hill and it'd be gone. And he went deeper and deeper into the forest until he found himself in the part of the forest he'd never been before, and he wasn't quite sure where he was or quite sure how to get back. And he started riding further and further. He hoped in the direction of the castle, but the forest, instead of becoming more familiar, became more strange. And then when he rode up to this pond, he knew he was lost because he'd never heard of or seen this pond before. And he just rode up to the edge of the pond and just pondered by the pond. He pondered by the pond. And there were all these stumps around the outside that were all misshapen. One of them looked like it was the shape of it looked like it was a knight on a horse, and then it was moving. It was a knight on a horse in full armor and riding around the pond, right up to Arthur. And the knight drew his sword and said, "Arthur, prepare to meet your death." And Arthur said, "Who are you?" "I'm Sir Gromer. You've stolen all of my lands. Prepare to meet your death." And Arthur said, "Sir Gromer," he said, "you're a knight, and you're going to kill an unarmed man." For, of course, Arthur only had his bow and arrow. Excalibur, his sword, was back at the Castle Carlisle. And Sir Gromer said, "Oh, you're going to play that game?" Because this was against the knightly rules. He said, "Okay, you want a chance for your life? I'll give you a chance for your life." Sir Gromer said, "Arthur, you agree on your word as a knight and a king to come meet me here in a year and a day. I'm putting a riddle to you now. You come back with me in a year and a day. You give me the correct answer to the riddle and your life is yours. Anything but the correct answer and your head is mine." "Agreed," said Arthur. "What's the riddle?" "The riddle is this. What does woman want more than anything else?" "What kind of riddle is that?" "A year and a day," said Sir Gromer, and off he rode. Arthur found his way somehow back to the Castle Carlisle and went right up immediately to his chamber where his beautiful wife, Queen Guinevere, was. And he said to her, he didn't want her to know any of the trouble he was in. So all he said was, "My love, my sweet, my queen, what do you want more than anything else?" And she said, "Oh, Arthur, my king, my husband, my love," she said. "I want peace and prosperity for all of England." And Arthur thought, wow, that was easy. But he thought, well, maybe, but he wanted to make sure. So he started wandering through the castle, and he came up to this young, beautiful maiden. He said, "What do you want more than anything else in the world?" "Oh, my king," she said, I can't tell you." "Yes, you can. You will tell me, and you tell me what you want more than anything in the world." "Must I?" "You must." "Oh," she said, I've always wanted to be your queen," she said, and she ran off. She was so embarrassed. And Arthur said, maybe that wasn't the one right answer. And so he started asking every woman in the castle, even the women in the kitchen maids, and everybody, and every woman had a different answer. There were as many answers as there were women in the castle. And his wife, Queen Guinevere, said, "Arthur, you want to find the one true answer? Why don't you give great blank books to each of your knights? And as they go on their quests and adventures, whenever they come up to a woman, they can ask the question and write down the answer." So Arthur gave great blank books to each of his knights, and as they went on their quests and adventures, whenever they saw a woman, they'd ask the question and write down the answer. Months later, one of the knights was miles away from the castle on a hot summer day, and he saw three little girls. "They're girls," he said. So he got off his horse and said, "Hey, little girls, what do you want more than anything else?" And the first one said, "Oh, I want to be a princess with a gown of silk woven through with silver and gold, and a crown with rubies and diamonds." And the second little girl said, "I want to be a knight with armor and a sword." Woo, woo! And the third little girl said, "I'm hot, I want to go swimming." So he wrote all the answers down, and all the books came back with all of the answers. And as Arthur read through them, somehow none of the answers had the ring of truth to it, but there were so many answers. And a year and a day went by like that, and it was time for him to go meet Sir Gromer. So he piled all the books up onto his steed, and off he went into the forest. And he's kind of looking for that strange part of the forest where the pond was. Got a little lost again, riding around when he heard, he couldn't tell what it was or where it was coming from. He got off his horse and he tied his horse up and started walking in the direction of the sound. And he saw there was this shape of red, maybe somebody with a red cape on, he wasn't sure. And he walked around and then he saw what was it? a monster, what, a woman? He couldn't tell. The teeth were like long and brown like a horse's teeth, and her fingers were gnawed like the roots of a tree, and her hair was just in tufts, and she smelled. Arthur! How, my lady, he said. How do you know my name? Never mind. I also know that you're going to Sir Gromer with all these answers to the riddle he put to you. How do you know that? Never mind. I also know that if you don't have the one true answer, out with your head. How do you know that? Never mind. I also know that of all the answers you have, you do not have the one true answer. How do you know that? Never mind. I also know the one true answer. Oh. What is it? Tell me. Oh, what is it? Tell me. I'm going to tell you for nothing? No. He said, I'll give you whatever you want. On my word as a knight and a king. Ooh, whatever I want? Yes. And so she went up and she told him the answer. He said, that's it. He ran for his horse. That's it, and nothing for me. Oh, no, my lady, of course. I'm so sorry. Of course, I'll give you whatever you want. I'll give you gold. I'll give you silver. I want none of your gold or none of your silver. What I want is to be married to your most brave and handsome knight. Oh, said Arthur, I could never do that. Well, so much for the word of a knight and a king. And Arthur realized he'd given his word. He said, I'm sorry, of course. But wait, if this answer you gave me, if the answer I gave you is not the one true answer, you owe me nothing. But if it is, you know what you must do. So off he went and somehow found the pond, and there was Sir Gromer waiting for him. Sir Gromer said, you have the answer. And Arthur said, Sir Gromer, how much time do you have? I have all day. So Arthur opened up the first book, and he went to the first page, and he read the first answer, and Sir Gromer shook his head no. Arthur went through every book and every page and every answer. Sir Gromer shook his head no. Arthur got to the last book. He turned the last page. He read the last answer, and Sir Gromer shook his head no. And Arthur closed the book, and Sir Gromer started drawing. He said, wait, said Arthur. I got one more. What woman wants more than anything else is to be able to make her own choice. My sister, Lady Ragnell told you that. Blast her. And he rode off in a rage. And Arthur went, oh. And then Arthur went, ooh. When he found his way back to the castle, everybody was eating and drinking in the great hall, and the doors were open, and their beloved king was announced, and they turned, and when they saw the expression on his face, they all fell silent as Arthur walked through the great hall into his own chamber and collapsed in front of his fire. And his wife, Queen Guinevere, went in and says, my love, my lord, my king, what is the matter? And he said, I can't tell you. If you can't tell me, then who can you tell? So finally he told her about the riddle that he hadn't told her about the threat his life was under, and about Lady Ragnell, and about what he had to do now. And all the knights and ladies, they were curious, of course, and they were around the outside of the door listening to see what happened. And all the knights that were married were so grateful to their wives. And all the knights that were not married were kind of creeping off, all except for his most brave and handsome knight, Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain went right in. He got on one knee. He said, my lord, my king, I will marry the woman. I will marry Lady Ragnell. No, said Arthur. You can't. And Sir Gawain said, my king, I know that you know and I know we know. We don't have a choice. And Arthur did know that. So he and Sir Gawain got on their horses and started riding off to collect Lady Ragnell, while everybody else started getting ready for the wedding. They got the cooks cooking, and they got the musicians, and they got the priest, and they kept running to the window to see when they were coming back. And somebody said, they're coming. And they all ran to the windows, and they saw King Arthur ride out, and then they saw Sir Gawain ride out, and then they saw Lady Ragnell behind Gawain, and they went, oh, try that, ready? Oh, like that. All except for Queen Guinevere. Queen Guinevere went right out, escorted Lady Ragnell into the great hall, and there was the priest, and there were Sir Gawain and Lady Ragnell, and they did the ceremony and declared them husband and wife. And the musicians started playing, and the food was laid out, but nobody had the stomach to eat or the heart to dance, and they all snuck off to their own abodes, leaving King Arthur, Queen Guinevere, Sir Gawain, and Lady Ragnell alone in the great hall. Queen Guinevere escorted Lady Ragnell to the marriage chamber and kissed her on her cheek. And King Arthur felt so awful, he just gave Sir Gawain a hug, but he couldn't say a thing. And when Gawain got to his wedding chamber, he could see the candle was burning on the night table, and Lady Ragnell had already gotten under the covers. So he went over and he blew the candle out, and he got under the covers beside her, and he pulled the covers up. And then from the darkness of their wedding chamber, he heard Lady Ragnell's voice go, "Gawain, what about my wedding kiss?" "Oh yes," said Gawain, "your wedding kiss." And Sir Gawain kissed Lady Ragnell. And there was something moving in the bed. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Gawain got out of the bed and he lit a candle, and there sitting on the edge of the bed was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. And Gawain said, "Who are you? And where's my wife?" And she said, "Oh, Gawain, I am your wife. I am Lady Ragnell. For by agreeing to marry me, by marrying me, by giving me the wedding kiss, you've broken a spell my brother Sir Gromer laid on me years ago, turning me into the awful monster you just saw." And Gawain said, "Oh." And Lady Ragnell said, "Oh, no. But now the spell is broken only halfway. So now I'll be beautiful by night when we share our bed, and ugly by day when we go to amongst the people. Or I'll be beautiful by day when we go to amongst the people, and ugly by night when we share our wedding bed." You said, "Gawain," you said, "the choice is yours." And Gawain said, "Oh, no, my lady. Oh, no, the choice is yours." "Oh, Gawain. Oh, Gawain, by giving me my one true choice, you've broken the spell forever. Now I'll be beautiful by day and beautiful by night." And so she was. And so Sir Gawain and Lady Ragnell lived peacefully and happily ever after.
Beautiful.
Our next participant, storyteller, is Blessed Ngoma. He's coming up soon here. He's going to tell a tale of how he got his name, Blessed. And Willow, his daughter, was going to come but didn't get to, so maybe another time we'll hear from Willow. But Blessed is a native of Zambia and lives in Vernon, so pretty close by, and he's a member of our church. And I'd like for you to welcome him warmly. We're in for a treat.
Yeah.
So my name is Blessed. I live here and I love living here. I'm happy most of the time. So my story is my story. Yeah, I've never told this story before. So when an opportunity came, I thought, oh, okay, I'm happy to tell my story. That's why I called my story. So my story will be in two parts. The story that I never lived through it, and the story that I lived through it. I experienced it while thinking about it and making decisions. So my name is Blessed Masonga Ngoma. So Blessed, it's an English name. We're all blessed to be here. I'm happy and blessed to be standing and speaking about Blessed. And my other name is Masonga. Masonga means bringing people together. I'm glad we're all here together and listening to beautiful stories. And my other name is Ngoma, which is a family name. It means drum. So where I come from, we drum a lot and we dance a lot. So this attire I'm wearing, this is my traditional outfit. It's usually worn by Ngoni warrior, and that's my clan, that's where I come from. So as a Ngoni warrior, there's a ceremony that happens once in a year. It's called Inchwala ceremony. We celebrate the harvest. So as a Ngoni warrior, this is my gear. I wear every time and celebrate with everyone else. So why am I talking about Blessed, my story? So when my father and my mother conceived Blessed, my father's brother had conceived too at the same time, difference of 2 weeks. And we all lived in the same mining town. My father and his brother looked very alike, like they were almost twins, as people would say. My father was Kenneth, his brother was George. My father was an educator, his brother was an engineer in the mines. So they both conceived at the same time, and when I was born, my mother never struggled. It was a quick, successful birth. And they had a baby boy, Bouncy, and my grandfather in the village heard that, oh, your son as a child was born 2 days ago. So the way it's done back home is the name is not given. People need to sit down and talk about it and give you the name. So for me, I received a name Gregory. Do I look like a Gregory?
No.
So I have 2 real birth certificates.
Oh my God.
The other one bears Gregory Ngoma, then the other one, Blessed Masonga Ngoma. So when I was given the name Gregory, I was a fussy baby. I could not latch and nurse properly. My mother and father had a sleepless night, and it continued for a week. My grandfather had come. My uncle, who is my father's brother, had a son too. So my grandfather came, he had 2 grandkids, 2 different homes, and when he arrived, he went to my uncle's house because it was near the bus stop. We lived outskirts. So he was there, saw the baby. In the morning, he came. That was now a week plus when I was born. So he asked, how's the baby? You know, he cries all the time, can't nurse, stuff like that. So my father took his dad to his office as an headmaster or principal. We were just talking about the baby life and all that. So when they came back, everything changed. They said, from today, effective now, his name is Blessed Masonga Ngoma. When I left the hospital, I left as Gregory. A week and some days plus, they went back and got a different birth certificate, which bears Blessed Masonga Ngoma. From that day, things changed in the home. I could nurse, I could sleep, things just changed. Everyone was happy. The other camp, my uncle was expecting that my grandfather was going to give a name there too. The name Masonga came from Malawi because that's where my parents came from. So Masonga is a big name where I come from, in Malawi. So my grandfather said, I can only give Masonga to one person. And the one who receives Masonga is Blessed Masonga Ngoma. So in my household, things were good. I nursed very well. I changed, became a bounce baby. I started even growing hair. That's why I have long hair, even up to now. Yeah. So my grandfather lived with us for some time. Then after like 6 months, he decided to go back to the village, to Malawi. So he did ask my dad to say, is it okay if I can bring one of my grandkids? Because it was time of holiday. So our firstborn, his name was Victor. Yeah, Victor, because I come from a family of 8 and I'm second last born. So Victor said, okay, you can bring Victor with you to the village. We will come and get Victor when it's almost time to reopen school. So Victor left with my grandfather. Victor never came back. He got sick and he passed on. So my parents had to travel to go mourn their son, and was buried in the village. When they came back, it was very, very tough for them, but they put through. So for me, I was told this story because that's how it is. This is what happened when your grandfather came. He gave you this name, and these are your people. So Victor died of typhoid, like diarrhea-related illnesses, because it was in the village. He came from a town where there was clean water. Yeah, but there was contaminated water, and unfortunately, he died. My grandfather felt so bad, and things proceeded, and everything went well. So for me, when I was told this story as I was growing up, because I'd see all the pictures of my siblings, because I was raised by my brother. When I was 7th grade, I joined my brother. So I asked about Victor, because most of my family members have Christian names, Wisdom, Progress, things like that. Those are the names we have, plus Blessed. And I was told the story about Victor. And fast forward, when I was in high school, went into my tertiary education, I was given an opportunity to do an internship at a program that did public health. So from there, that's where what I do started from. So that's why for me, this story is a very, very good story to me. Mm-hmm. My brother Victor died of diarrhea-related diseases. My first job was, I worked in a lab. And thanks, it was funded by the American government, USAID. So thank you so very much, my people. So I got that gig and I was trained. I worked in the lab and I got trained to be able to produce media and be able to go out in the field, take water samples. When you make media, it's a medium where you can put bacteria, and I produced what we called chlorine for warm water purification in the eastern part of Zambia, where my family came from. So this is where this project was undertaken, and that's a gig I got and went there. And when I thought of Victor, and I thought of my first ever good job was in public health. And this happened in the eastern part of where we come from. So I started producing chlorine. And I produce chlorine. So why can't I be one of the people to go out in the field and talk about the importance of using chlorine at domestic level, which was granted because I like to talk and public health to me just came naturally. So that was granted. So I produced chlorine. I collected water samples. I analyzed all the bacteria and reported, and I could tell that in this part of the town, when you look at the chlorine-free level, when you put water in the container, it will take like 5, 6, 12 hours. This other one, because of shigarashis and all that, it was fast. So we had now to calibrate the amount ratio to water, what to add. So that's the job that I did. And to me, that job really made a lot of sense because my brother died of diarrhea-related diseases. And my first job was to produce, market, teach about safer way to drink water at an affordable. As you might know, in Africa, in certain regions, we do not have tap water or clean drinking water. So, because of my story, the job that I got, and I started my public health journey, that has always been me. So the death of a beloved one created a passion for me to work in public health and be able to support other people, provide chlorine. When I came to the States, things turned around. I focused on infectious diseases, which is also public health, helping people looking at disease occurrence, disease patterns, and how to mitigate. So, Victor, my name, Blessed, Masonga, Ngoma, means a lot to me, and I'm so proud to be standing here and talk about Victor, my parents, how I came to be a public health guy, and I'll still continue doing that because it's something I feel it's a calling, and I know Victor is so proud of me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is my story.
This will be news to the participants. We're changing the order. So Michael Mayer is going to go next, and he's being assisted by Stefan, who has other things to do this afternoon. So Mike Mayer is a two-time host and contributor to SNL. Well, that's South Newfane Live, of course. Not that other late show that you know about. Anyway, he sees himself as equal parts mystic and maker of good trouble. We've heard that a few times, haven't we? In the realm of personal and planetary transformation. He hails from Williamsville, and I quote, "Light in the darkness, when a flatline state doesn't take you for good, but prepares you for good in new ways, this storyteller's brush with death gives life to hope and purpose in troubled times. His Thirsty in the Rain," that's the name of it, narrative, reconciles human longing and its fear-based consequences and the abundance of life. Mike Mayer, please welcome him.
There's an eagle and he keeps on flying over mountains capped with white snow. In green valleys, lonesome people trying so hard to tell each other what they think they know. With greedy hands, they take each other's money just to buy back each other's pain. In this land of flowing milk and honey, they wander thirsty in the rain. Thirsty in the rain. It's an anthem for our times, this song from the 70s from Peter Rowan. World spinning out of control, power, money, fear, driving so much of that turmoil that engulfs us. Untended cries for help, fears growing in the shadows. Social action's a part of our response. But the inner turmoil, that may be even tougher. My story today is a microcosm response to that challenge. Problems worthy of attack prove their worth by striking back. Pete Hind, by way of my father, favorite quote of his. Another one, I don't give a fig for simplicity's sake, but simplicity after complexity, that is worth dying for. These musings set up what I have to share in a single phrase. Death is a trip. Life is a choice. And making the most of our time here is about how well we embrace the two amidst their dance of grace and confusion. Picture an MC Escher graphic that keeps turning back on itself in elegantly disorienting ways. Many of you know that I got shot point blank in the back in a carjacking a number of years ago. Halloween night, going unconscious, bleeding out, yet fully conscious on the other side. My dramatic encounter with the light fundamentally changed me, of course. But death's more than a one-way ticket out of here. It's our choice to let things die that we're better off without so that we can move on. That death makes life real. Dying to those parts of us that no longer serve make for conscious living. So life was a choice for me when I was given another shot at life after the first one didn't get me altogether. A through line has emerged since then between being held with infinite love on the other side and what this life can be. That through line is the frequency at which we choose to resonate, tune into, and operate from. We see a heart monitor with electromagnetic wavelengths, a little bit like this. Brain monitoring that tracks beta and theta waves for meditation in states of relaxation, calm, and insight. It's much subtler. That is like what I felt on the other side, and it's virtually a flat line. And in fact, it appears that I had actually flatlined when I was gone. Especially now, the frequency I choose to resonate from is rooted in stillness. Since the shooting, a practice has evolved with me to realign with the frequency happening for me at that time. Immersed in source, knowing myself to be nothing more than an expression of that love, tuning into the light, that light of pure being. It is said to reside in crown chakra, which in Eastern tradition is basically saying that is the seat of pure consciousness for us. And what has happened for me is I've somehow found a way to use that as a satellite dish that can receive some of what that cosmic wavelength might be. And I think what this story is about is really how do you bring that into your life in a way that actually helps you maintain that frequency in everything you do. You know, when I realize that that's happening and when it's working, I kind of remember that those guys on the other side, they're envious of us, those ascended masters and ancestors and all, because they got all this consciousness, but they don't have this. They don't have this. And so it's for that we're here, to be able to do the work that they cannot do, but for which we can be such an important force in this world, in this dimension. So what about grace? What is it? You're hearing about grace this morning from this one. Well, it's children's laughter. It's the sun in the new spring. It's whispering pines. It's things that delight us when they happen sometimes. Readily seen in appreciation, I would call that easy grace, or maybe grace light. Then there's grace serious. That kind of gets at the heart of things. It happens when we listen to and process in our lives the incredible feedback that the universe is always giving us. And also when we choose the frequency or channel at which those signals or that feedback is coming through. Not in consideration here are the sketchy grace clueless, about whom this is observed, the rain falls on the just and unjust fella, but the unjust has the just umbrella. Pete Hine again, but as far as we know, he's not connected with the beer company. Heineken, yes. Grace light and grace serious flow when we choose to live at the frequency of attunement. That's when we're open to hearing our true self talking, choosing to grow and strengthen that part of our brain that supports intuitive guidance. Night is a big time for this, to go into attunement. It's a time that can spark dreams, as many of us know, with clues to the baggage that higher self may be bringing to light. Helen, are you not hearing? Do I need to speak louder?
Your cadence goes up and down and in and out, so it's hard to get every word.
Okay. Just 2 nights ago, I was hit with really uncomfortable stuff that I've been carrying for a long time. Feeling less than, stressed, wanting to catch up, missed opportunities, all these kinds of things. Dreams sowing confusion and disease. But somehow when I woke up, there was a lightness, and I realized that somehow through wrestling with these things, something I'd been able to let go made me freer. It coincides with my normally healthy body, which started acting up a while ago. Painfully stiff joints from gout, which, as you may know, comes from eating certain kinds of foods which I actually don't have. Used to be called the disease of kings. Anyway, lots of fat and meat and red wine and all these things that are not a part of my life. So this is puzzling, and I started taking a lot of meds, and they didn't really work, but I realized, wait a minute, the meditation that is usually a part of my life, I've been kind of let that slip. So I started doing it again, and almost immediately, the symptoms went away. And I realized the kind of healing that was coming as a result of going back to source, going back to that frequency at which I'm at home, was really what I needed. It was the universe telling me, loosen up. The things that are really so important to you, remember that there are other things. Get back into that place where you're going to be reminded about the important things. Samskara is a Sanskrit term for mental imprint. Burning samskara is said to free you from its burden. Practice of service, loving kindness, meditation are ways of doing that in the Eastern traditions. Well, my take on that is less burning some scar than actually making it compost for the cosmos. Like turning our dead bodies into human compost and natural burial, which is an important part of my life, where you can settle in between a rock and a hard place in the ground when life on the ground has run its course. Death of whatever part of ourselves is ready to go, that we're ready to let go, that feeds life in the process. So just as organic waste feeds soil, letting go our fears is emotional compost for the heart. It is this stuff that transforms it and feeds the person that we're longing to be. Letting go the disarray that stokes our fears, layers us in us that are really the source of pain and disease. So think one regenerative principle of living in the light, dying to live, to feed our doing both well. Again, living in the light, dying to live, so we can continue to grow into grace. Like that eagle, now my soul is flying. Valleys in crimson morning sky. And there don't seem to be no use in struggling so hard. No reason why. I must thank you for the rich man's money, so I can buy back his helpless pain. Seems so useless and somehow funny to be thirsty in the rain. Thirsty in all this rain. Like that eagle, now my soul is flying over valleys in the crimson morning sky. I just want to give over to what it means to be really alive, present to the miracle of attunement. Grace, again, is being awash in that experience, coming out the other side from turmoil. Grace is the floodgates to mystery, open to the barred owl's calls outside my open window at 4 a.m. to guide me on this journey. Grace is listening, trusting, knowing that the angel's flight of our soul journeys, that flight beckons us. It is the story I choose. When confusion seeps in untended, I do my best to gently observe what's in the way, which more often than not is the way to grow and embody my fullest self. Oh, fare thee well now, my own true lover. My face you'll never see here no more. But there is one promise that is given. I'll meet you on that shiny golden shore. Golden shore, love, where the eagle soared so high above the fruitful plain. That's the same thing that we lived in. We wandered thirsty in the rain. Thirsty in the rain. I'm the same friend that you knew when we wandered thirsty in the rain. It's human nature for us to long for what lies beyond, yet cling to what we don't have. Fare thee well, my own true lover, is saying goodbye to the old narrative of fearful churning. The promise of that shiny golden shore, well, To me, it's the transmuting of fear to love, where the eagles soar high above the fruitful plain, here for us when we are bold enough to claim it. That death is a trip. It's not easy. Dying to get there is who we are. Embraced by grace all along the way in its many forms. Life is that choice, tuning into and living at that frequency where grace resides. No better time to be alive as lead actors in what Joanna Macy calls the great turning. So about the balance of it all. Good and bad are in my heart, but I cannot tell to you, for they never are apart, which is better of the two. I am this, I am the other, and the devil, he's my brother. But my father, he is God, and my mother is the sod. So I'm safe enough, you see, owing to my pedigree. So I shelter love and hate like twin brothers in a nest, lest I find, when it's too late, that the other was the best. I think of hate really as being fear. So love and fear, light and dark, peace and pain, they coexist, especially in the tough times that lead you into knowing, such as what we face today. Their dance with us and in the cosmic scheme is the journey. Grace is wherever we let it in, notably in the confusion, when we allow it to lead us. Grace is at the core of who we are, if and when we can be open to its quiet, ubiquitous presence, tuning into that eagle soaring. Last thing, I leave the care of everything in your hands, O God, and think of nothing but reposing completely in you. Thank you, Stephen Amidon.
We have our next storyteller coming up. Dot McDonald is a Brattleboro native. No, not native. Resident. I wasn't reading correctly there. Anyway, she's sharing a story called A Bolivian Adventure, and I quote, "I've been telling stories all of my life to my friends and more recently at storytelling venues." You may have heard her at the place down the road. Due to my footloose wandering by foot and by bike over the years, I've experienced quite a few adventures, and this is only one of many stories we're delighted to hear today. So please welcome her.
The background of this story is that about my second year of college, that summer I had off, and I really wanted to go down to South America. For whatever reason, I was obsessed with South American culture. So I managed to achieve that by going through a program right here in Brattleboro, actually. In north of Brattleboro, but they gave really good deals to students who wanted to go and live in a foreign country, in my case, a Spanish country, to learn more about the language, learn more about the people, and experience that, and travel through the country that we were in. So it was a 2-month program, really cheap, but really well done. And so I did that. And when I came back, I had a group of people with me. They were all my age, and we had an incredibly good time. We were all college students. And there was another program going on at the same time for the high school students, but when it was the time to travel through the country, those high school students opted out for skiing in Santiago. We, however, we could ski anywhere. We just decided we were going to travel down the whole length of Chile, get down to the very tip of the thing and come back by bus. So we spent 4 weeks doing that. But anyway, it just turned me on to the whole experience. But several years later, I got the itch again to go down to South America. So I turned around to my best friend in college and said, hey, you want to go down to South America? And she said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so we started planning it, saying we were going to go for the whole summer, like 8 weeks, and go down and we were going to fly down to Ecuador, go through all the things in Ecuador, go to Peru, go back to the people I lived with in northern Chile, and then go up through Bolivia into back to Ecuador and fly home. Well, anyway, in the midst of this, my brother's one of my brother's good friends, who used to be at my house a lot, said, "Oh, I'd really love to go on that trip." Now, I loved this guy, except that he was like very fastidious and and very clean, you know. And I said, well, you know, South America isn't exactly like going to a motel in America or anything. You know, I really want to go. I really want to go. He harassed me day and night, and then I finally gave in because he said to me, well, listen, down in South America, now this is 50 years ago, right? It's really, you know, the women aren't really seen the way they're seen in America. He said, I'd be good for you to be alone because I'm a man. We'll tell them that I'm your brother's best friend and I'm here making sure everything's all right. And I said, well, that's not a bad idea, actually. So off we went, and we did all that. We flew to Ecuador, we wandered all around Ecuador. There was many, many, many adventures there, but all good. And then we took a colectivo, which was a little tiny car filled with newspapers to deliver on the way for $10 for all of us, all three of us, to travel like 1,500 miles down from, because at this point we were in Lima, traveled down to northern Chile. Now, northern Chile is where I was staying, and I used to stay where I had been like 2 years before, so I wanted to visit those people. And Antofagasta was the town, and it sits at the edge of I can't remember the name of the desert. There's the driest desert in the world. The Atacama Desert is the driest desert in the world. And so I'm thinking to myself, wow, you know, when I first came here, I thought to myself, what could a desert do for me? So I had said to my friends, where do you see this desert? Well, anyway, the desert is like concrete because it never rains. I think once every 20 years it might sprinkle, but that's about it. And you could drive a truck over it and it doesn't sink the sand. And it's also the home, Calama was the home of Padre Lepeche, which is this famous priest who was down there, who unearthed all these, basically they were mummies because they were people who had died like 1,500 years before and had been buried in the sand and they just dried out. But they still, clothes was there, skin was there. So we went and checked his museum out. It was a blast. I mean, it was really something I'd never seen before. Anyway, so after that, we went back to see my friends there, and we decided, okay, now we're going to go to Bolivia, because we'll go through Bolivia, go across Lake Titicaca, go to back to Cusco, and then eventually fly back from Ecuador. So we were all happy about it. It was sort of coming to the end of our trip. And so we took the train from Antofagasta that goes over the high valley of the Incas and drops down, crosses the Bolivian border, and takes you to La Paz. And so we figured, that sounds great. So we get in the thing and we're going in it and we're driving along. We saw this beautiful scenery, alpacas and llamas running next to the train, and we could see all the waterworks from the ancient Inca ruins and stuff. It was quite incredible. I got the feeling a little bad on that trip, and a guy who was worked on the train came over to me and said, "You've got mal de mer." He's trying to explain to me it was seasick. And I said, seasick? He said, no, the altitude. And I said, oh. I said, what's the altitude? He said, 15,000 feet. I said, oh. So he came and brought me this special tea, which helped me. I didn't even want to ask what was in it, but I certainly slept after that. Anyway, we came out, and we were in a very happy mood. We were excited. We had just passed the border. Right before it gets to La Paz, we passed the Bolivian border. We all had to get off the train and get our visas to get into Bolivia. So we got back on the train, and we were there, and we were thinking everything's good. We get to the station in La Paz, and we get off, and right away we were feeling like something was wrong, because the guys who were getting our luggage off the top of this train, it was a single gauge train, so the luggage was on the top, was throwing it toward us, almost at us. And I said, that's really odd. Nobody has ever been rude to us, down in South America. But we didn't think anything of it. And all of a sudden, these soldiers come and surround us on the station. And a couple of them were armed. And my friends look at me, and I look at them, and I whispered to them, don't say anything. They didn't speak much Spanish, my two friends. I was doing all the translating for what it was worth. And so they roughly say to me, we're taking your luggage. We're confiscating your luggage. And I said, well, we have a hotel room here at La Paz. He said, he asked what it was. We told him. He said, okay, but I don't know if you'll get it back. And they carry it off. And they leave with us this young man who, I'd be surprised if he was more than 17, with a submachine gun with us, and the orders to take us to the commandant. Now, I understood what they were saying between them. They had decided that we were going to be arrested, and and I said to the guy before he left, why are you arresting us? He said, because you entered Bolivia illegally. I said, no, we have a visa. And he said, no, that doesn't count. No Americans can be here. No Americans can be here. And what we didn't know is that a few days before there had been a coup. We had no idea. And we weren't really thinking about the politics at the time. So anyway, we were scared would be an understatement, because we were thinking, oh my God, are we ever going to get out of this country? Am I going to be like one of these lost Americans? So I reminded my friends not to talk, that I would talk to this kid. So the kid takes us outside of the subway. The train came into like a subway type station. We went up above, started walking down the street, him with his gun walking behind us. And I said to myself, okay, think. So I turned around to him and I said, how far is it to the commandant's place? He says, a couple of kilometers. And we're walking up and down these hills in Bolivia at 13,000 feet. And I wasn't feeling so great. Anyway, so I said to him, well, why don't we take a colectivo? Now, colectivo is like a taxi in this part of the world. And so he looks at me like maybe he should do that, maybe he shouldn't do it. I said, look, we'll pay for it. And he goes, okay. So he flags down a colectivo, and we all get in the back of this taxi, him with his gun, and myself and my two friends. And I couldn't even look at my friends' faces because they were like... And so I start talking to him about where is he, or did he go to school, how did he end up in the army? And he started chatting more. I said, now look, we are just tourists. There's nothing in our luggage. They're not going to find anything in our luggage. We didn't bring anything in here. We're only like 20, 21 years old. We're just traveling. That's all we're doing. And I was like hitting him with all this. And then I could see that he had a cigarette in his jacket. I said, oh, I said, you want an American cigarette? And he goes, yeah. And so I give him one. We open the windows, and he's puffing on his cigarette, and I'm going on and on about why this is really just a mistake, This is not, we're not really dangerous, And so we go on and on. He starts to loosen up a little bit, and I could see he had some holes in his uniform. I mean, he was just a kid, and so the finally stops, and we get out, and then I turn around to my friends once more and say, don't say anything. Because I was afraid that they'd make a mistake with the words. And so we went in, and he came in with us, the kid, and he starts to talk to the commander going, and I understood what he was saying. He's saying, they're tourists. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just tourists. And they're really nice to me. And blah, 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 blah. And the guy says, now he doesn't know what to do. Because he's thinking, he's talking to the other guys, maybe we should arrest them. What are we supposed to do? And this kid keeps saying, no. Didn't they take the luggage? Didn't they take their luggage? And the guy says, yes. He said, well, look at the luggage. They didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. He was like making a case for us. And finally the guy said, well, he says, take him to what he was taking us to was the boss, this guy who's in charge of immigration or something, I don't know. And so we go out, and I say, we'll get another colectivo, okay? So we get another colectivo, and we drive another few miles to this guy's place. And we get there, and this is a very fancy office building. And he says to me, you're going to be okay now, because this guy, he speaks English, and he spent years in America going to school, so he'll be all right. He's going to give you a real visa. for being here. And so that's what happened. He took us upstairs and he asked us a lot of questions about where we came from and made sure that we were Americans, and then spoke to us in English all the rest of the time. He says, well, I'm really sorry this happened, and blah, 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 blah. And my friends are going like, oh. I still have that stamp in my passport, my old passport. I never threw it out. I had to look at that stamp, and he had to sign his name on it like he was a really important person. And so we took a deep breath, and we walked out, and we said, we're not staying in La Paz. So we got out. We got on the boat to Titicaca the next morning and sailed across Titicaca, ended up in Cusco. And from there, we ended up going back through Ecuador. But it was pretty hairy. I mean, all the time I was talking to this kid, I'm saying, this you have to say the right things to this kid, because he's young and influenced, and and we were being really kind to him. And so anyway, before I left him, he waited outside to make sure that everything went out right. And I came out and I went into my pocket. I gave him like 3 packs of American cigarettes. I carried that simply because it was a great thing to have when you were in South America, because a lot of things are done by bribery, unfortunately, down there. So that was my second scariest experience in the world.
All right, we have one more storyteller. This is Lindy Sayward, and she hails from Putney now. Hasn't lived there very long, and she comes to our church, and this story is titled Nudges, Following Your Spiritual Compass. This story is about inner nudges and synchronicities throughout my life. I'm quoting her, illustrating how particular experiences have guided my decisions and shaped my journey. It covers experiences of the interconnectedness of including being a person who showed up at the right place at the right time, mystical signs and symbols, and becoming aware of my part in creating my own mindset and experiences through trusting inner nudges, my own intuition, and the spiritual law of attraction. Please welcome Lindy Sayward.
So I am a believer of our stories and having an opportunity to learn from them. And as Lee and Carolyn know, I'm always telling stories when I'm over their house. Today I'm going to be telling stories, but they're sort of strung together. So that's why I have notes, because some of them are consequentially connected, and I'm over the age of, so I don't always remember everything. But I wanted to say that when I came up with an idea about having a spiritual compass, and it's not a GPS, it's a life planning system, an LPS. And I find that when we pay attention to our LPS, you never know what's going to show up or what you're going to learn. So in containing these stories in my life journey, I've learned a lot reflectively, but in the moment, I sort of honed my ability to be a spiritual compass. So I start with a story that happened after graduate school when I was just beginning my spiritual counseling healing practice outside of Boston. And I was new to the area, and it was beautiful near Walden Pond, and I really loved it there. But when I first got there, I was feeling a little bit disconnected and lonely, and just sort of pondering how to break into the community. And also I was yearning for connections, but also for relationship. So one day when I was driving home, it was a gorgeous day, the blue that you like we had the other day. It was like, oh my gosh, the sky was so blue. And I glanced up and I saw this formation of a cloud, and it looked like a woman's head with long hair, just like mine, flowing out behind. And underneath, believe it or not, were the words love, L-O-V-E. And I found myself saying, that's gotta be a message. That was right at where I turned from my house, and I had been really feeling lonely, and I felt like I just would know that there were possibilities ahead and to be open to them. And that was sort of the mystical tap on the shoulder, not to give up, not to worry about things, that all would be well. So about a month from then, a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to have some tickets for the, I think it was the Messiah concert in Boston. I know that they have to order them way ahead. And so he asked me how many I wanted, and I said, gee, I don't know. But for some reason I said 2. I didn't know who it was going to go to, didn't have a clue. So where I lived was happened to be a shared house. I had 2 absentee housemates who lived in California, and another one who I didn't see that much, but he was a pagan, and so I'd hear him with his whatever you call it when you bang it on the floor to do ritual. But anyway, he at some point had to leave, and I was responsible for getting housemates. So a potential housemate applied, and when he came, he wanted to check out what the land was, and I lived right on conservation land, so it was very enticing for him. And so we started talking and stuff. Well, he turned out to be an Egyptologist, and so he deeply appreciated the mystical approach and symbols and signs, and so we really resonated with that aspect, and really finding a profound relationship to the unseen. So as not surprising, he was the one who used the ticket, and Holden and I became boyfriend, girlfriend, and the most amazing thing that he ever did, I can't forget this, he used to write me love notes in hieroglyphics. So anyway, he wasn't there very long because he got a job offer to be the curator of the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, California, which is studying ancient Egypt. So he really felt a calling there, and like I said, he wasn't there that long, but he really wanted me to follow him afterwards. And I hadn't even thought about it. And then when he called me, he says, you know, you really need to come out. And so I also, by the way, didn't feel like the relationship would last. I felt like I'd learned a lot already. He reminded me of my dad. So I ended up moving to California because even though I had financial challenges, it was like the calling to go was so strong. And I knew the move was going to be important. I didn't know if it was having anything to do with Holden or not. So when the relationship didn't last after I got there, I always felt like he was symbolically the airport that I landed to have my life, my new chapter. As you may or may not know, Santa Cruz is in California on the ocean, and I would walk to the ocean every day, and it was so beautiful and so healing and so nurturing. But what else was wonderful is that it's a haven for anybody interested in holistic healing. And so there were a lot of us who were budding healers, holistic types at that time, and we gathered together in a group and we'd have breakfast and we'd do a presentation. And it was an environment, the whole town was an environment where we could thrive and connect with each other. It was pretty amazing. And in this gathering, a group of people that met once a week, there was a vibrancy and, you know, sort of like this church actually, vibrancy, and there was a sense of adventure of what is to come. Consequently, there was some cutting edge folk who were there who are now extremely well known. So what was nice was they asked me to present 3 times. And what it did for me was to build my confidence and because they were literally honoring my gifts and talents. And I felt recognized and free to be to be me and to my true me, not my role, but me, which was a wonderful experience. So this experience of acceptance empowered me to return to the East Coast a year later, ready to share my perspectives and new insights with others. However, I did make very strong connections. And one of those connections was with a woman who was referred to me by another friend who didn't know Jane, but knew I was supposed to meet her. So Jane got in touch with me and came over to pick me up at my little bungalow. I was now living in Capitola, right on the river, and that was a little shared, beautiful bungalow. And she came to pick me up in her big white SUV. I got in the car and was about to put my seatbelt on because we were going to go out for lunch. And she said, "Wait a minute, wait, I'm nudged to do something." She reached into her purse, took out her checkbook, and wrote me a check for $1,000. I was astounded. It was like inflowing of God, knowing how to take care of me. And she said, "I just feel really called to do this." And it was an incredible experience, and stayed with me because these mystical things can happen a lot. If we open our hearts, we'll receive them. So when Jane and I started over to the taco shack to have our lunch, we were walking, chatting, and a man about where Dwayne is fell on his back, elderly man. So I ran up to him and I said, "Jane, call 911." And I went over and started doing healing work on him. And just as the EMTs were coming, he started to come back. And he was sort of a dazed look, but he was there. And the EMTs came over and they said, is it okay if we come and work on him now? Basically, it was like, that's what Santa Cruz was about, is they were respectful that there was a place for the holistic healing aspect. And I really felt a great deal of respect, and the man did survive, and it felt like we were at the right place at the right time. It was quite something. Another thing that has been guiding my path is the law of attraction, which you may know is what we think we create, what we feel we attract, and what we imagine we become. And I have used that method quite a bit to bring things into my life. And there was a time when my wonderful Subaru just couldn't get inspected, and I needed a used car. So first of all, I was nudged to go see my mechanic, and I said, "What kind of car should I get?" Thinking Subaru's going to say Subaru, because they're not up to standard lately. I recommend that you get a Honda CR-V. So I went and spent time imagining I'm sitting in the car, and actually in my mind it was a chocolate Honda CR-V. And I imagined what it felt like. It's much higher than a Subaru. And the next nudge I got was to ask people where they had bought their used cars. "Where did you get your car?" "Oh, we got it down in Bethel." "Oh, where did you get this car?" And I kept asking. And then I had asked Patrick, and Patrick said, "Oh, we got ours up over at Frank Keen's. He's great. He's a very honest man, and he completes business with a handshake." I said, "That's my man." But I also knew that was the place. So I paid attention, and I went over there, and wouldn't you know, the perfect Honda CR-V had been sitting there for a month. It had very low mileage, 26,000 miles on it, pretty old car, and minor rust. But you know what was amazing to me is that the whole incident felt like it was orchestrated, I almost felt like my dad was involved. He'd passed. I almost felt like my daughter needs the car. I want her to have a good one. We're going to get on it, and we're going to find one. And it was just an incredible experience to experience that. And guess what the car's name is? Miracle. Oh. So another experience that I felt was pretty mystical. It is mystical, and it affects other people. is that I was very close to my dog, Kiwi. I think Lee and Carolyn might have met him, I'm not sure.
Kiwi.
I was very close to him. And so when he died, I felt bereft, obviously. And while I was working at my desk and felt his unmistakable presence, like right there. So I grabbed my phone, nudged to grab my phone, took a picture, and you can see him in spirit in my picture. And I'm not the only one who can see him. People who don't even believe on the other side could see him. So that was a huge, profound experience for me to comfort me in my grief. And I'm so grateful that that happened, because it also opens up people to what faith is when I show them the picture. There's spirit, see? You can see the outline of him. It looks just like him. So that was one of the most mystical experiences I've had for a while. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when I go out and about, I really tune into the energy around and people and connections and what am I supposed to be doing and whatever, just sort of tune in. Where do I go here? Where to go there? And actually, when I'm from Randolph originally, when I lived in Randolph after I moved back from California, I remember that I would run into people on the street that were from church or whatever, they knew who I was. And they'd say, I need to ask you something. And it felt like a sidewalk consult, but God had said, okay, you got to go here and help this person. And so it was really fun to feel like I was being used and making a difference with people's lives. But one day I had gone to a workshop by a very, Joan Borisenko workshop, who was obviously talking about body-mind stuff. And I went to the room, and it was like 150 people and all sitting on round tables. As I walked in the door, it was like, you need to find somebody in here. There's somebody here you have to meet. That was the feeling, the guidance that I had deep in my heart. And so I sort of tuned in on a higher level, was really open to sense that important nudge so I would recognize the person. So I found her. I went, well, the tables is like, it's almost like a magnetic energy. It's like, well, not that. It's like the car, not that one, not that one, not that one. But then I found Josie, and it was wonderful sitting down. What she turned out to be part of my soul family, and we had a connection and spent some time being supportive of each other. Although she lived fairly closely, but she was very busy, so we didn't get a chance to see much. But remember that certain people are destined to meet you on your path. And these individuals felt very planned by the universe. And the other one was when I was at a little lecture, and this woman 2 chairs down, I could feel her energy, and I looked over and she goes, meet me afterwards. I didn't know her from a hole in the ground. And we both felt the energy of a connection. So anyway, I had to tune into my environment and where my inner compass was pointing the way. The last story I have is also tuning into the environment, but a different way. I was out behind, I lived in an apartment at one point, and it's like a mountain is behind and Main Street is over here. And I was taking a nap on a blanket, right, was the field, the mountain, the field, and then lawn, and then the street. And so I was sort of dozing, and I heard this thump, 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 and I went, what's that? And I looked, without my glasses on, oh, it looks like a horse. What's a horse doing here? Put my glasses on, it was a young moose heading for Main Street. So at the time, it's like, wow, what am I going to do? This doesn't look like a good situation, given that it could hit, I know somebody was seriously hurt by getting a moose at them. So I checked in, it's like, do you need to be afraid? Are you okay? And it was like I felt a sense of peace. And so I just went into action, and I felt somewhat like a talk to the animals traffic cop. So I'm talking to him on a higher level, like, listen, you can't go there, it's not safe, whatever. And I'm going, come over here, you gotta go back to the mountain, come here, come here. And it was like not paying attention, got right to the street, a car stopped. And I said, no, over here. And it went, look here, look back at me, look there, go. And then lickety-split went off to the mountain. It was really incredible, because at the time I go, I can't believe he listened. But that's what it felt like. And I felt like I had been, again, at the right place at the right time. And so it was a catalyst there. So anyway, it's been pretty amazing. Lots of stories to share. But I want to say that the symbols, the signs, the mystical things, the unexpected connections, and bold decisions are not unique to human beings, for they teach us the importance of trusting our intuition and embracing opportunities as they arise. It reinforces the power of serendipity and the courage to follow the voice of the soul. My adventure of following nudges continues to teach me the importance of trusting the roadmap of my journey and acknowledging my own empowerment and the interconnectedness of life by paying attention to all these nudges that the universe is putting me in the middle of. My own story has led me to new learnings and awareness, and you might say evolving consciousness. I feel like these little nudges have magnified my destiny. They've given me more clarity of who I am and where I fit. And it leads me to new and unknown territories. And for all of us, I think it does that same thing. Because in this especially transformative times, in case you haven't noticed, in which we live, we all need to be inspired to show up, speak our truth, and become who we are meant to be. And I am very grateful for these mystical and magical experiences and live in expectancy for what's next. Thank you.
If all the storytellers will stand up, please, just where you are. You don't have to gather up here, but one more round of applause. Thank you again for putting your time in and being here today. For the audience and the storytellers, we'll be downstairs with light refreshments. If you want to say something to them besides thank you, that would be wonderful. Join us downstairs.